Hello, everybody. It's Francesca Raulison from the Mental Health Association of Rhode Island. And today we are going to have a conversation exploring approaches on healing trauma. And I'm very excited to introduce you to Jane Mizrahi. Jane Mizrahi is a licensed independent clinical social worker in private practice, as well as a clinical supervisor in an in-home therapy program out of Fuller Hospital. Welcome, Jane. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. I'm truly delighted to be here.
My pleasure. So we're going to start right away with a question regarding around trauma. How do you understand trauma, and how does it affect both our minds and bodies?
So I think I'll start out with the concept that the mind and body, I really see it as one experience rather than dividing it out.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a paradigm that can help you understand trauma. So any experience that overwhelms a human body, that includes mind and body as one, can be considered traumatic. It can be one experience that overwhelms, or it can be a lifetime, if you will, of a relationship that is overwhelming, from infancy, from birth to the present moment. Those people that have complex trauma, so trauma through our childhood over time, complex trauma as an adult, we look back, oh, that's complex trauma. That wasn't one thing that happened, but over time, relationship to mother or father was didn't serve to help the child feel safe and secure. So we look back and we name that complex trauma. So the concept of overwhelm, and then the concept of not getting one's needs met after an overwhelming experience. Nothing is healed because of neuroplasticity, which is the ability of the mind body to change. We can revisit our relationship to that experience over time. But when a child, for instance, experiences something that is overwhelming over time and doesn't have a trusted, secure adult, an adult that can help them through that, trauma becomes sort of an everlasting experience until it is worked through.
That was very clear. Thank you so much. And I think I'm going to follow up with this question. Can you give us examples of traumatic experiences in childhood, and why are those experiences significant?
It's endless. So if a child is born into a family with domestic violence experience, so even if they're not experiencing the violence firsthand, that's traumatic, because the home where we want a good enough experience of security isn't providing that. If a child is hungry and not nourished when they're hungry, over time that becomes traumatic. If a child experiences its own physical or emotional or sexual overtaking from the people that were supposed to love them, that is traumatic. If someone's mocked, if someone's bullied, if someone's just, put down over time, that is traumatic. So illness, substance abuse in the family creates an experience of overwhelm to the nervous system. So again, overwhelm to the nervous system is traumatic, and becomes traumatic if it is not sorted out.
So would you say that it's the event in itself that is first traumatic, but if it's not addressed, then it's even more traumatic? Or where does it start to be traumatic?
So I think that's really well said. So it is the event, it is the perception of the event, it is the support you get around the event that all conflates to be somewhere on a spectrum. And so let me say that I'm very focused on looking things at a spectrum, 10 being it is the most traumatic, and 1 being, oh, I can see that it doesn't feel as safe as I would like it to, but it's not big trauma, it's not overwhelming trauma. But I often see things on a spectrum. There's also like universal truths. As beings, there's certain things that are overwhelming for all of us. It might be that the spectrum is still there. So the sound of, a gun, and so I'm naming something that could trigger people who might listen to this. But the sound of a gun, that's sensory.
Mm,
There isn't anybody that says, oh, that's nice.
mhm,
Universally, that's alarming to the nervous system. It could be that to somebody it's a 10 and to somebody else it's an 8.
mm.
What is the difference? But ultimately, meaning 8 and 10, I'm not a scientist down to the, but everything can be seen. How overwhelming is it? How severe is it?
Very clear. Thank you. So talking about those, I would say the body, the way we react, how does the body play a role in the healing process of trauma?
Remember in the beginning, I thought it was really important to say like the mind and body or we're one human being and they're intricately related. The body holds experiences. Butterflies are an example of a bodily experience that we get from sensory information from our environment. Butterflies, a
Mhm.
headache. The heart rate is variable, slower or faster. We sweat on our palms, on our back. We get chills. We get goosebumps. We get rapid breath, longer and deeper breath. I'm going to shout out to Bessel van der Kolk. He wrote a book called The Body Keeps the Score.
Mhm.
The concept is that the body is involved in any experience. So we tighten our belly so your question was, how does it affect it? So when I work with people, I will use my own body in the present moment to say, I feel the need to take a breath and I'll just pause. Or if I notice a client, my job is to observe my clients and to see what's happening in the present moment and to invite them into the present moment. If I see a far off look, like they're sort of checking out a little bit, and the clinical word for that is dissociation. Mind body experience, one experience of I'm overwhelmed, I check out. When we do healing, we work with the body in the present moment to build agency. So I use the word agency, more capability in the present moment. So can I straighten my back when I'm feeling sort of insecure? What is that like in the present moment? Can I bring my shoulders out of my ears when I'm tense and learn to experience more equanimity or balance or wellness in the present moment in the body?
Mm.
When experiences come along that overwhelm us, we need to titrate. We need to work back and forth, bringing ourselves back toward wellness in the present moment. It's a journey. Every single moment is a journey toward that. People that have complex trauma are more vulnerable to being triggered to the environment until they sort themselves out through therapy or self-study or with a mentor of sorts that helps them respond to the world with more agency, equanimity. So then if something drops in the other room where sound can overwhelm me, I can name that sound, breath, staying in my window of tolerance. Our nervous systems are exquisite. At any given moment in time, the nervous system helps us to be in the present moment. Our jobs is to make best of a present moment. So if we're too activated or too underactivated, overwhelmed, underwhelmed, to find equanimity.
Mhm.
And the past informs the present. And the present is sometimes dysregulated and overwhelming. Like we know on this planet, there are places that are completely overwhelmed. No one is doing this work. They're in survival mode and they need to be. The world is very challenging. So we still need to figure out a way to be okay despite our challenges if we can, if we are not in I'm just going to say it, not in a war zone, because we all know what's happening in the world. And so here and now, despite the challenges, can I find wellness, overwhelmed, underwhelmed, and find grace in the present moment?
Thank you. And I think we're going to dive deeper into what you shared about what you do concretely. So can you tell us a little bit more? So what is a somatic approach to healing trauma? And could you elaborate on how this differs from traditional therapeutic methods?
So, okay, my background, I'm a yoga teacher. I'm trained in yoga for the last 30 some odd years. So this informs who I am as a person. So it was very natural for me to train and further my knowledge in working with body practices to help my clients. So I'm just going to name some things. So probably the most important thing is working with breath, because everyone knows we don't need to focus on breath, we breathe, but it's a very underappreciated way of navigating the present moment. I'm going to actually just show you, my phone is here. One of the apps that I'm showing my clients now is Paced Breathing.
Mhm.
And it's a free app wherever you get your apps. And I have no connection here, folks. So I read about this. I started it. I'm just going to show you again. The bold areas you get to change. And so you'll notice the 7-3-9-3. I do an inhale for 7. I hold for 3. I do an exhale for 9. I hold for 3, and I do it for 15 minutes. So that's a wellness practice that I do as often as every day, if there isn't something interfering in my life. And so breathing in session, working with clients, helping them note their breath and work with their breath is one example. So sympathetic arousal, fight, flight, fright, means the breath is short and shallow and uneven, and it reinforces. So that's a body, we're breathing. The body moves the energy to the limbs, to the extremities for safety, fight, flight, fright. That's a good thing. But often we're in sympathetic arousal where we're breathing fast, we're sweating, all those things I described earlier, Francesca, when we don't need that energy. So using the breath to bring down the nervous system, because we're not in flight. There is no bear chasing us at this moment. And if there is, we use it. Folks, I get it. But often we're overwhelmed because we're perceiving from the past, or we're worrying so much about the future that we lose this present moment and recognize, so right now I'm okay. What can I do with this present moment? So breath is a way through. And when people practice that over time, you have access to it when you need it. So that's the point. When we practice certain somatic body-based techniques for wellness, we have access to them when we need it. We're developing synapses, which are those connections in the brain that help us, that guide us. So if I bite my nails, so I feel stress, or if I smoke cigarettes, stress, smoke, stress, bite my nails. Those synapses are deeply, deeply like an ice skating rink. They happen very quickly, and the brain goes to them, not to punish you, but the brain wants you to get your needs met. Oh, bite your nails. When we recognize that one of our habits are actually not what we want and need, I want pretty nails, or I don't want to harm my lungs, we become the observer and say, oh, I'm about to smoke. I need to go over a rocky road, develop new synapses. It's not easy. It isn't easy. Change is difficult. Please understand that, folks. Who's ever listening to this isn't easy. And if I'm making it easy, it's my bad. But once we start to step on a new rocky road, and instead of biting my nails, or instead of smoking, I do so these breathing exercises in the yoga world is called pranayama. So just imagine doing 5 minutes of breathing and sitting on your hands instead of biting your nails, and you're in the beginning of new synapses. So working with breath can help us change the way we relate to the present moment.
Totally clear. The way I understand it is that there are habits that we have to cope with things, and we have created pathways in our brain, which are synapses. We observe that, and if we do want to change it, then we choose to breathe, which is a way for us to activate our parasympathetic system.
Yeah. Can I just tell you how excellent that was? You did such a beautiful job. Like, because I feel like I'm saying a lot, and what you're showing me is that you're picking up what I'm putting down. You're getting it, and then that might be a reflection of other people. But I really don't want people to think, oh, just breathe. I'm not reducing life to a breath. There's so much more, because certain habits are addictive, like nicotine is addictive. So now we're talking about, having to work with Nicotrol, or, Alan Carr's book. There's so many different ways to stop smoking. It's not just a breath. So please, I don't reduce it to something so simple. If breathing were that simple, everyone would be doing it. It's not. But yes, working with breath and making it smoother and longer and deeper, access parasympathetic tone where we can think more clearly. This part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, is offline. We are activated from the reptilian brain, and the sympathetic arousal is there. We're not going to think clearly, which is why a wellness practice, I reiterate it often with my clients, having a practice of wellness, and we can talk more about that, allows us access to it when we need it. There's other practices, so sensory.
Yeah.
I think about the senses, sight, sound, smell, taste, touch. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is a strategy. Come into the present moment to wake us up from the trance of thinking about the past or worrying about the future. And if something is happening in the present moment, it's not like the present moment is so delightful. That's not the point. But we need access to ourselves to be in this present moment and cope with this present moment. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 5 things I see, 4 things I hear, 3 things I touch, 2 things I smell, 1 thing I taste. Using your senses, your sensory relationship to the world, I can ground myself through my senses. So grounding is another somatic experience to help us cope with the present moment. If I feel my feet on the earth and pretend that I have roots under my feet into the earth, I feel held. Let me be clear. I said the mind and body are one. If you do brain research and you invite people to do what I just said, ground your feet and feel roots underneath and really feel the moment of safety, the brain changes. I read a research study that elderly people, I think they were in their 80s, were asked to pretend they were 10 years old and playing. And they did exams of their brains, and they were completely different. They felt different. They looked different. They seemed different because of these exercises, brain, body, one. So grounding, if you're not standing, so I'm sitting here. So right now I imagine, and I invite you to do the same. Just imagine your bum on the chair and feel rooted and grounded here. The earth coming up from the floor, up the back of your spine, filled with light, safety, even love. Just allow just a little bit in. It might feel hard. The spine is as straight as it can be, no perfection. The shoulders are soft. The face is soft. The belly is soft. And breathe into this present moment, feeling sourced from the earth as love. Let that settle into your nervous system. Take a breath through the nose. Hold it at the top and breathe out through pursed lips. And when you're ready, just flutter your eyes open and check in with how an invitation to use the body in the present moment and the breath can serve you.
This was great. This is new to me, and I'm sure that for some people listening as well, that can be if they were doing the exercise with us. What's your experience, or what is something you can say for people starting this, wanting to start this and starting it the first time and be like, oh my gosh, this feels so new and maybe unnatural for me to just sit and then be with myself. What are advices you have for us wanting to explore this?
Anything is better than nothing. And 5 minutes twice a day. And in those 5 minutes, I would, so self-evaluation, what do I need right now? So I'm taking 5 minutes and I'm self-evaluating. Do I need more or less energy? So if I need more energy, I'd open my arms into a V and I would focus on the inhalation. Brings in more tone. It's breathing in is more activating, breathing out is more deactivating. So activating. I would even do a very, very gentle back bend. Please know your own health and don't do anything that doesn't feel right. I might jump up and down to get some activation if I had the body ability to do that. Some people are disabled, so do what you can to activate your body. If I'm feeling too much, I would need to shake it out. So I would shake out my arms and legs. I would stand up. So jumping could be used at either end. After I'm done with my body, I would then sit and do and do some breathing meditation. So again, the benefit of meditation is we learn to observe our thoughts and feelings, and we build discernment. We build the ability to say, oh, okay, I'm okay now. Once heard a meditation teacher say the worst neighborhood in the world is the mind. Bad neighborhood. When we learn to see thoughts as just thoughts, because the mind chatters universally, don't think you're special. When we learn to see the chatter as just chatter and not truth, we can begin to not hook onto that thought, and then focus on senses and focus on learning, teaching, reading, entertainment, knitting, play, painting, dance.
I wanted to go back to some of the questions because I think we touched on a lot of different things already. I wanted to go back to talk therapy. Could you explain why talk therapy might not be quite, I would say, as sufficient in treating childhood trauma, and what are its limitations in this context?
I think I want to say that the challenge is that we sort of can't talk our way out of, have to be with. And for talk therapists that are not, trained in somatic work, I think all therapists that do talk therapy are trained in presence, in the present moment. And so working with the present moment, if you know a client is starting to dissociate, which is that lower under present, or a client is starting to get activated where they're over present, you can't talk through that. You have to be through that. You have to hold a client through that, not physically, but metaphorically. I'm here, I'm present. Let's take a breath. So I don't think anybody doesn't do that with the present. I mean, not that everybody does that, but the invitation is for therapists and clients, or therapists' responsibility to help a client in the present moment, not talk their way out. Let's keep talking. Let's keep talking. Can you rub your hands together and tap yourself when you're feeling checked out? So how can you, if you're checked out, you can't talk, you stop talking. So it's holistic. This mind body one is holistic. It sees the person as not just thinking. Okay.
So what are some other therapeutic approaches that you find effective in treating trauma, especially when it's rooted in childhood experiences?
So again, therapists do this, I think, out of what we're here for, but to validate a client's experience, one of the things that trauma is invalidating. Because think about this. The parents, this is by nature, there's no judgment here. Parents have all the power. In the beginning, 100%, because infants are completely dependent. So what happens when the relationship is rooted in a power and control dynamic, always, where a child doesn't learn to find their voice, find their identity, find their understanding of what is happening in this world. If we help validate a client's experience when an environment over a lifetime was invalidating, that's our job. So validation. And it sounds trite. Oh yeah, I get that, but it's deeper, it's relational. If my clients feel seen and felt and heard and even loved by me, not love without a boundary, I'm talking about felt, my validation of them helps them validate themselves. And I'll always say the constant core of who you are before the trauma, beneath the trauma. So we bring access to that. So I'm thinking of IFS, is that we all have parts, and sometimes parts get us into trouble in the world. And so with a compassionate lens, a therapist can say, oh, I think this is that part that I sometimes name parts. I have fun with parts. I use Wonder Woman parts. I use characters to name parts. Okay. Many people have perfectionist parts and gets them into trouble, and it means well. You need to do your best. Maybe as a child, if you didn't get an A, you were no good. It was was either A or bad. And so love was very conditional on how you did. And so this perfectionist part follows you through the world. And a therapist helps see the perfectionist part with deep compassion instead of judging it. And when you find yourself getting worked up in the body, so the belly gets tighter, the shoulders go into the ears a little bit, the breath gets a little shallow, we calm down and we ask this perfectionist part to settle just a bit and begin to remember thoughts as well, that if you do your best, that is enough. If you do your best. So let's put the classical music on, let's clear the table and let's study and let's use some techniques that we've learned in therapy around focus. We work on focus. And then all of a sudden, then the perfectionist part shows up. We say, no, we're just going to do our best.
Yeah.
Trust that we can do our best, that no one's judging anymore. The B is good enough. The A is great. The C will work. Let's see if we can get it back up. There's just this flow. So all of a sudden, perfectionism comes up and the relationship to it is softer. So we name the perfectionist part instead of identifying as that's who you are. No. We have this part. It served you very well. It's gotten you into trouble now. Let's see if we can work with it. So everything's very compassionate. So that was an example of IFS.
Okay, thank you.
So I just took a drink of water. And I cannot believe that up until now, I haven't mentioned it. And I don't know what I would have done if we finished and I didn't bring this up. I would have judged myself. So here's where I do self-study. I would have judged myself and I would have felt tight. My heart would have gotten faster. I would have become the observer of that, soothed myself, and trusted that I did the best I could. I was disappointed and I needed to release the disappointment because it wasn't serving me anymore. One of the most basic things I do with my clients is check in with basic wellness. So is that somatic? I don't know what you want to call it, but if you are not adequately sleeping, this work can't really get done well. We can start. We must address sleep hygiene, it's called, and check in with how is my client interfering, or is there a blockage? Is it nightmares? Is it caffeine? Is it the cell phone? Basic wellness other than sleep is also nourishment. Am I nourishing myself with nutritionally dense enough foods that I am actually well enough? When clients come to me and say, yes, I had breakfast, I had a donut, I provide psychoeducation on nutrition. I am not a nutritionist. And if I need to, I work with nutritionists with my clients if they are receptive. Hydration. If our hydration is soda, I provide psychoeducation on the benefits of drinking water, teas. So sleep, nourishment, water, movement. So movement, I don't even call it exercise, but the body needs to move to be well. And I know there are people that are disabled, so I hear me saying it, but in any way that a person can move their body and breathe, they are moving toward wellness. The relationship to social media, I bring up all of the time, because this generation, all of us that are alive, that have access to these things, are impacting our relationship to the world. We have information from across the globe instantaneously. Social media affects our health. And it's basic. So when my teenage clients are on their phones till 2 and can't get up in the morning and say, I don't know why, we begin to look at their habits of living so that we can increase their wellness, so that they don't have to sleep in class, etc. Medications. If my clients are on medication, are they regular? Are they, so there are basic wellness that if we're not talking about, this work is, it doesn't get done well enough. Sorry, one more thing, connection. There's a lot of loneliness out there, and COVID reinforced that. So there are ways for people to connect. So I find out what my client's relationship to others is and honor that as well.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
trauma, it's really hard to work with trauma if basic things aren't in place, because it's like we're fighting against each other. If a person is never sober, it's hard, you can't do trauma work. If a person is never sleeping, you can't do trauma work. Do you have
Mhm.
any questions about that? Because it's like wicked important.
No, it's very clear. And going off of that, in your experience, what are some common misconceptions about trauma, and how can we better understand and support those who have experienced it?
I guess a common misconception is that, I don't even think it's a misconception anymore, but there was a time where PTSD just meant you were in war or an
Mhm.
accident or a murder or something really egregious, a one-time thing. And now we understand that experiences, relational experiences, or experiences when we're young and over time impact our wellness or our nervous system, that causes hormones and a way of living that is not as healthy as it can be.
Mhm.
So it doesn't need to be war, is the point.
Mhm.
A misconception is that if there's DV, domestic violence, and and you witnessed it, but you weren't the victim, that it shouldn't have affected you. That's a misconception. It will affect you. A misconception is that trauma can start in utero, and we shouldn't you won't, obviously, even when you're born into up until maybe around 3, you can't put language on it, but it doesn't mean trauma didn't happen. But a lot of, so misconception is an interesting word, because I don't want to speak as if people don't know this, but I don't know how common it is.
Mhm.
Um, Misconception is that people think they're broken. Many people come to me saying they're broken, and I undo that um, thinking and believing, so that people can recognize their ultimate goodness and beneath what happened to them. So I don't ask a client, I ask, tell me what happened to you. Tell me about your experience, not why are you drinking.
You're doing this work and you're helping people in navigating their life challenges. How do you manage your well-being as you help people navigate through this?
So it's a really important question, because as I supervise other therapists, I speak to it all the time. So having a basic wellness practice, which includes the things that I said earlier about taking care of myself,
Mhm.
um, knowing where I am at any given moment in terms of, our needs change. If I didn't sleep well one night, I'm going to need more sleep. If I rush through a meal, I'm going to need to slow down. Boundaries. Oh my gosh. I don't think I said the word boundaries once today. So trauma is about a breaking of boundaries,
Mm.
right? So someone has all the power and you become powerless. That's a boundary issue. But as a child, you have no power. So I help my clients find their power and learn how to set boundaries. And so wellness for me is saying no when I mean no, saying yes when I mean yes, not answering when I don't know. So I might say, I need to think about that. I
Mhm.
care deeply about you, but I can't say yes, and I'm not going to say no. So finding language to speak your truth
Mhm.
so that you don't sacrifice yourself at the altar of another. And so I said the word fawning earlier in the fight, flight, fight, fawn. So fawning is serving others because that's what you had to do when you were younger, and you find yourself serving others as an adult
Mhm.
at the expense of yourself. And that's sympathetic, that's activation in the nervous system that is unsustainable. And people sustain it throughout their lives. It's just not in a place of wellness. So
Mhm.
boundaries with others in a kind and clear way. This is okay, this is not okay. So my wellness is daily.
Mhm.
Rest is really important to me. I believe we're human beings, not human doings. I'm okay with saying no. I also don't care all that much what you think about me. So your thoughts about me is your business. I still want to be a good person. I don't want you to dislike me.
Mhm.
Let me be clear. I don't want you to dislike me. But if you come away from this saying, milk toast, I'll have a reaction, I'll feel bad about it, but I will land after I self-soothe and become the observer. That is not my problem. I did the best I could. I came from my heart. I shared, information that I have studied over many years and experience and just living as a human being on this planet. What you think of me is your business, and that helps me be well.
That was very empowering. Thank you so much for sharing. Is there anything else that I didn't ask that you would like to share?
Oh, I'm going to make a pitch.
Yes.
And I am not financially involved, but ZenCare, ZenCare.co is a website that started in Providence. A student out of Brown, Uri, created ZenCare.co as a way of finding therapists. And what ZenCare does, different than other venues, is they have the filter that says whether they're taking availability and whether it's in person or telehealth. And there's videos of the therapist, so you get to see if you have a sense of them, if you like them. So I think that's for your viewers that are looking for a therapist, because if I've inspired you to seek counseling, I know availability is soft, but if you're open to telehealth, more people are taking there than not in terms of availability, and ZenCare is a great place to look for a counselor.
Thank you so much. And would you like to talk about your ebook?
I wrote an ebook through COVID toward, I don't know, my own anxiety about that experience, and ran a group for it as well. So this ebook is named Choreograph Your Wellness. It is 5 chapters. The whole 5 chapters is $5.99, and you could pay for it. You have to buy it. I think you have to buy it chapter by chapter. So it's $1.99, and then 99 cents.
Okay.
And it reinforces a lot of the stuff we talked about. And let me just leave you with one thing. Wellness is a verb. You can't read yourself to wellness. It's a verb, it's a practice, it's a living, it's a thought, it's a body, a mind, a spirit. You have to work the program. It ain't free. There's no buttons to push. You've got to work the program. So I wish you well. Francesca, I wish you well. Lori Marie, I wish you well. I wish all of your viewers well. May there be peace and light, and may you do your part so you can contribute to the wellness of the world.
Jane, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. This was so inspiring, insightful, and thank you everyone for viewing. Feel free to share, and thank you for your support, and I wish you a wonderful day. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.